Crawford ain't nothing to play with. He ain't scared of nobody, and you ain't too big for Crawford. So kill that narrative. It's over with. Blood has been drawn, and you're going to see Crawford is the best fighter in the world. Canelo will be beat up like a bloody pulp when it's through. Talk that shit, Bill!
Lines have been drawn. Lines have been drawn. That was Bill Haney and his projection, his prediction, his wishful desires for Canelo Alvarez to lose to Terence Crawford and let me counterpunch. I love it because I think the closer this fight's going to be, I think we're going to see more people come out like Bill Haney and express themselves and who they feel will win, you know, and what side they will take. You know what I mean? I think that's very, very important, you know, and Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford, you know, I think the fight will speak for itself, but I think talent-wise, just talent-wise alone, you're seeing the overall comparison between the two, and it's not a difference between skill. So you're not looking at someone that doesn't know what they're doing versus someone that does. You're not looking at someone that's inexperienced versus someone that's experienced. You're looking at two fighters that are very experienced, that are two legends in this generation. Get it on. And the only thing is size. You know what I mean? The power, sure, you could say the power, but it's the size which pretty much dictates the power in most cases, because Canelo's the bigger guy, so obviously he should hit harder. You know, so that being said, you're looking at an overall competitive, legendary fight between two guys, which, you know, you would have said this 2 or 3 years ago, people would have looked at you like you were crazy. But no, this is 2025, and I think it's going all the way live. Bars. But I have to remind people of the overall what's the word? The landscape. I have to remind people before 2023, okay, before Terence Crawford fought for undisputed welterweight supremacy against Errol the Truth Spence. People, the super fight wasn't Terence Crawford versus Canelo at all. It was Errol Spence versus Canelo Alvarez, or should I say Canelo Alvarez versus Errol Spence. See, if Errol Spence would have pulled it off, that would be the fight that people would be looking to see. They would be looking to see Errol Spence versus Canelo Alvarez because, believe it or not, that was a fight that people were talking about for a very, very long time. I just think people just totally forgot that. You know, it's crazy how people's memory is just snatched out of them due to a loss or whatever. You know what I mean? When things don't go according to plan for that particular person, it's just quickly forgot about. I just find that hilarious, but that was the fight. Errol Spence versus Canelo Alvarez was going to be the fight that people were looking at, either at 160 or 168, because people have been talking about it for so long back in the day when the Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford negotiations were falling through left and right year after year. That was the fight that people wanted to see, or people was opening up the idea of seeing. Canelo Alvarez versus Errol Spence. Now, when Spence got washed by Terence Crawford became the immediate replacement for that particular idea. Now they're fighting in September. Go figure. You know, then again, you know, we got Turkey al-Sheikh falling out of the sky with all this blessings and favor and money and security, right, of getting these fights done. And I think that's what we need to pay attention to with these two fighters, Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. But that's Bill's take aggressively, his take on Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. You guys tell me what you think about Bill's prediction. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.